We're here today with Terje Toftenes from Norway. I understand you're a filmmaker.
Yeah, that's right. I'm doing documentary films.
Yes,
that's one of my professions. Yes.
And you have done something about the UFO phenomenon. That's why we're here today. Mm-hmm. What got you into this field? What is?
Well, it's always been an interest of mine since all the way back since I was a kid, and since I've been working with making typical informational films and educational films all my life. I have always wished to try to make a documentary on these topics that have been of my personal interest. So finally we did. And in 2008 we did a documentary on the Hessdalen phenomenon.
What is that? What is Hessdalen? What is?
Well, first of all, Hessdalen is a small valley in the midst of Norway, up in the mountains, just 10 miles or 100 kilometers south of Trondheim, one of the largest towns in Norway. And this small valley, this small mountain valley, is inhabited by 120 people. And over the years, these people have seen a lot of strange lights. And it started really in the beginning of the 80s, 1981, when lights seemed to travel up the valley in the late afternoon and early evening. A couple of hours later, they came back again, went down the valley. It was big lights, and well, people started to wonder, what in the world is this? And it wasn't any kind of plane, because it was just beneath above the treetops. It didn't make any sound. It moved very silently, very slowly. So it obviously couldn't fly in a normal matter, and there was a lot of speculations. Some people thought it was some kind of light reflection or whatever, but it didn't work that either. So it attracted over the coming months. It attracted a lot of attention, and the military was there to try to find out what it was. The Norwegian Broadcasting was there and filmed it several times, and a lot of people came to see it. And this continued and continued for many, many years, actually up till this day. And sometimes the light moved in enormously high speeds. The highest speed that was measured was 30,000 kilometers. And it could suddenly stop, do 90 degrees angles, and sometimes it would stay still for almost an hour. Lighting up the whole valley, and the light was measured to be something like a megawatt. And people asked, how in the world can this, where is the power cord? Because obviously there was a lot of energy in this light.
But there has been some scientific studies of this. What has it attracted the attention of universities? Have they looked into this, and how have they done this?
There was people from the technical university in Norway. They were they were there pretty soon and started to put up equipment. And now, over the past years, there's been a stationary observatory with radar, low-frequent radio receivers, cameras, automatic video cameras. And of course, these instruments have caught the light on several occasions. Quite astonishing pictures have been taken, and a lot of radar measurements. So there's no doubt about it. There is something very mystical going on.
And even the scientists, they go into. Normally, scientists are very reluctant to going into issues like this and phenomena like this. But how come they have engaged in this issue?
Probably because it's so obvious that it actually is happening. Everything that is measured tells you that this is a real thing. And so, of course, the speculation is, what in the world is this?
So what is it? Have there also been solid objects been observed, or is it all about lights in Hessdalen?
Well, first of all, it's about lights. But when you speak to the local people, they say that it's not only about lights, it's also about solid objects. And then we're talking 40, 50, 60 meter large objects like Zeppeliners, or as one guy expressed it, it's almost like a passenger plane, but without windows and without wings, and it moves very slowly and silently just above the treetops. So they have seen what many would characterize as spaceships.
And it's not something local hysteria that they're imagining things because it seems alive.
I mean, these people are very down to earth. They are farmers, and they all of them risked their reputation for telling this. So, for a long time, they didn't want to speak of it at all because they were ridiculed, of course. And but many of them have come forward but it's farmers. One guy who's had many of these experiences, he's a local bus driver, and another one is a shopkeeper, and I mean very normal people, but they all have this in common, that they have seen this over many years, and they're just as curious as anyone what in the world is visiting us all the time.
When did it actually start? At which year? And is it still going on?
Excuse me. It started December 1981. Even though some people say that they had seen it before that, but the real peak of this started then. And over the next following 4, 5, 6 years, it was very frequent. They said that it appeared with something like 20 times a week. And but now it's over the past years, it has kind of decreased a bit. So now it's like more 20 observations a year. And it seems like the more equipment that they have put up there, because now there is a Norwegian observatory, 24/7 observatory. There is a Italian observatory connected to the astronomy center in Bologna. And there's also a French observatory. So the more equipment they put in there, it seems that the less observations actually. I don't know if that has anything to do with each other, but that's the way it works. But I've seen it once myself. I've been there.
What did you see?
Well, excuse me. This was in 2007 as we were making the film, and it was in September, and they had a survey with a lot of students from the university and also a lot of school kids, because they have found out that this phenomenon is so exciting to explore that it actually is a very good way to motivate young people to study physics and stuff like that. So they bring with them a lot of young people every year that participate in the study. And
that's all a trick of the teachers' association.
Yeah, I was just thinking that, Robert.
And they're of course very excited about this. It's extremely exciting. And on top of it, there's rumors that there are bears and wolves in the area. So if you don't see a light or a UFO, you can actually meet something else that can scare you. So the students think this is very exciting, staying on these hilltops at night. But what I saw, I was sitting with a group of students on a hilltop, and I had 3 video cameras pointing in 3 directions, a still camera, just sitting and watching. It was a very nice night with a clear sky of stars, pretty cold, around 0 degrees. And we were sitting there talking, and then suddenly there was a flash right above our heads, just like someone was flashing with a big photo camera. And we looked up, and there were 2 big glowing bulbs or balls. And it was impossible to say if they were 100 meters or a kilometer or even 10 kilometers above our heads, but you could see it very clearly against the dark sky.
Do you have it on video?
I'll come to that. But they were moving. These balls were moving in parallel. There was not any physical connection, but they were moving like they were connected for like 20 seconds, and then suddenly it just shot into the cosmos. So, and it just happened. I was just like paralyzed. And after the whole thing was over, I, of course, remembered that I hadn't been able to push a single camera button because I was just so paralyzed by it, So it's
it's an extraordinary story.
Yeah, and this is kind of this is often what happens when people see things like this,
yes.
Because it shocks you to an extent where you forget to push your camera to call people. You're just so kind of into the situation that everything else is doesn't matter, you know. So unfortunately, I didn't get any pictures. But that light was recorded on the automatic cameras. And also on the radar, they could see it. Yeah.
What do you think the scientists who have been there? I mean, there must be several, at least maybe 5 or 10 or even more scientists. What is the main hypothesis what do they think that the explanation is? I mean, they don't draw any conclusions, I gather, but...
Well, I have to say, and maybe I shouldn't say this, but there are two versions of this. There is the official version and there is the private version.
Okay, from the scientists.
From the scientists,
okay.
Because the scientists, they need funding.
Yes.
And they need backing by the university, and they have also got a lot of equipment from the military. And if they should use a word like a UFO, they wouldn't get much funding. So they have named this the Hessdalen phenomenon, an unknown natural phenomenon. But so that's kind of the official thing that they're trying to study, an unknown natural phenomenon.
So they called it a natural phenomenon, unknown natural phenomenon.
Yeah. But when you speak to them on off camera, the word UFO pops up very often, of course.
So have there ever been beings?
Yes, and this is what I found most interesting. I mean, this light is, of course, very interesting because it's of such an unusual character. But the most interesting thing to me is what the locals have told me, that they have seen these big ships, and also on several occasions they have seen these ships landing. And they have, one guy pointed out to me a place where a big cylinder, he said it was like a bullet, but an extremely big bullet standing upright, like 3 or 4 meters in diameter. And he could see how it had pressed the ground. There were marks in the ground. And there's one woman who saw this land in kind of very close to her house. And there was a person, she said, or something like looked like a person that came out of it and was walking around taking earth samples. And it was a person 1.20 meters high with a helmet and a backpack, a brownish suit. And he went into this bullet-shaped thing again and rotated like his cork or a screwdriver up like this and just went over her house. So
sounds like something like from a movie or something.
Yeah, it does. And again, these people, to me, I would find it very hard to believe that they are making this up, because for them it only creates a lot of
unnecessary problems.
Yeah, a lot of problems to tell it. So I had to really work with her for a long time to get her to tell the story.
What do the scientists say about this, who are there to study the phenomenon?
They have actually no comments. They say we cannot relate to what the locals have seen. We can only relate to what we can measure with our instruments. So that's because that's science. Everything else is just beliefs, you know.
Just to jump a little bit, because we're running out of time, you made also a film in The Day Before Disclosure, which is a completely different angle, where you interview a lot of different witnesses and researchers. And the title of that film has the word disclosure in it. And we've just talked to Robbie Graham, who has one perspective of disclosure, that it's never actually going to happen. It's kind of a utopia. And it's kind of a naive notion to have. What is your take on the disclosure notion?
Well, when we did that film in the period of 2005 to 2010, the word disclosure to me was, of course, a very natural word, because that was kind of the
buzzword of the time.
It was the word of the time, and we had to find a title for the film that kind of appealed to the audience. Now, 5 years later, I have a little different view on the whole thing, because I very much agree with Robbie here that it probably will not happen the way that we want it to happen. And there are very many good reasons for that. So I think there's no politician on earth who will risk his reputation by trying to bring this or surface this topic. it's a true career killer. So if it will happen the way that we want it to happen, I guess something extraordinary must come up first. I mean, if there is a landing on the White House lawn, as everyone wants to, maybe that will start it up. But I don't think that will happen either. Absolutely.
If you were an ant researcher and you were about to study an ant hill, would you start your research by establishing diplomatic ties with the ant queen?
Well, that's a good question. Yeah. I don't know.
But perhaps it's just a matter of getting more and more information. Disclosure is just about a little information coming out and more information out. So what is there actually to disclose, and who knows what? I mean, people constantly refer to the government, but who is the government really? I mean, it's many agencies and many people, and there's also the point of that a lot of this information have gone to corporations instead. So what can they disclose? They don't have to disclose anything.
I think the whole thing is very messy.
Yeah.
But one thing that I think is very good is that the fear factor is not as big as many people have expected. And I've always said to myself that if the case is that we are going to be invaded by aliens, I guess they would have done that decades ago or thousands of years ago. So the fact that no one seems to really have been hurt or have been, okay, people that claim to have been in contact with them sometimes get very traumatized on a psychological level. But I mean, it seems to me that there's nothing to really be afraid of. We are not going to be invaded. We are not, and if or if we have contact, it seems to me that it will be of a friendly kind. So
okay.
I really look forward to that one, if I'm here when it happens.
Last question. Any current projects? Is there going to be a new film out soon?
Well, we are working right now on a film more on where the topic is the merging of science and spirituality and the research into consciousness, because that's one of the main, I mean, everyone knows that we have a consciousness, but science cannot tell us what it is. It's called the heart problem in science. And I think that is kind of the key to open up for a new understanding of the nature of reality, which we perceive with our five senses just a part of reality, and there's much, much more behind it. And to me, that's extremely fascinating, and that will always also probably bring us closer to find out what's actually going on around us and who are visiting us, and so on. So it's very interconnected with the UFO topic as well. So
it's going to be out soon, I guess?
Well, we have said that it's coming out very soon for the last 3 years, but it's a huge project, and of course we can't work every day on it because we have to make a living as well. But probably early 2015, this film will be finished. Yes.
Okay, unless the aliens will land and steal your material.
Thank you very much, Terje.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you.